Accept my recording, please, and tell me that it's recording, because I don't want to miss a beat of what Thomas is about to say. Is it
I'm
recording, guys?
I'm not getting a notification that it's being recorded.
There's a there's a red button on the corner of my screen that says it's recording.
Okay, so it is recording. Okay,
Oh,
I see
God.
that button too. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to get Thomas to introduce himself. But I want to say, I don't know for sure, but I feel he's been doing this for over 25 years. So that's what I said. But he can give you the details about that. But I know he started from way back in his family business where he was running kind of like a corner shop or a small boutique operation until now he's doing it in the digital space. So he has come a long way in terms of marketing. So he's the right guy for the moment. That I know. Thomas, introduce yourself properly to us, please.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. Most of you know who I am. Thomas here from Coyote, marketing and design studio here in Toronto. I actually started my marketing career in 2000, officially. Before that, did a little bit of work um, through the university. Yeah, oddly enough, my first job before I even graduated was a consultant. Um, and uh, and then after that, I was a marketing specialist for a publishing firm. And then after that, yeah, did go back to the family business for about 10 years. Helped turn that around through marketing before starting up Coyote. And we've had Coyote around since 2013, 2014. So yeah. So that, very, very briefly, that's my story. If anybody wants to get a hold of me, wants to have a chat, I've just put my information in the chat. If you want to catch up, I'd love that as well. Um, the reason why I'm here today is that I've been doing a lot of brand reviews and brand audits over the past little while. Um, And quite honestly, it's been pissing me off because none of them have been doing it right. And so I wanted to share that information with you guys so that you're not, if you guys do go on a brand audit or brand strategy journey, that that you're finding somebody who's going to do it right. And so I'm just going to kick things off. And let's see if I got it right here. Nope, not that one. Oh, there we go. Okay. I'm going to do this. All right. Everybody see me nice and big? All right. So, so for most people, what they end up doing in terms of their visual brand identity, let me turn off the framing thing here. Video, accent setting. This is annoying. Auto framing. There we go. All right. When most people go on that brand journey, what they're really doing is getting a visual brand identity. And this is logos, websites, et cetera, et cetera. But that visual brand identity is not a strategy, it's an output, right? So, when we talk about, so I'm going to kind of very briefly go through a few things. But so, um, why am I, no, wrong screen, sorry. There we go. So, I'm gonna go beyond the visual brand identity. So marketing 101. I'm gonna teach you guys marketing in 5 minutes, and this is what people pay a bunch of money for 4 years of university. And essentially, it is still product, place, promotion, and price. And what are you selling? Where and how the product and service is being sold, how customers are informed and persuaded, and what customers pay. Essentially, it still comes down to that. And this has been around for decades now. But essentially, it still comes down to that. Now, they say it's up to seven Ps now, or what have you, but essentially, it's still that. But in terms of today, I like the way that Seth Godin says it. Marketing now is people like us do things like this. And this isn't marketing insight, it's branding strategy principle, right? So this is how brands create meaning, loyalty, and differentiation. Who are people like us, and what does choosing this brand say about them? So essentially, when we're talking about who are people like us, it's who is your tribe, what are shared beliefs, what are your shared values, and this is more than demographics, and we'll get into that a little bit later as well. This is not, 25 to 45-year-old professionals, people. It's people who value independence over status. Sorry, somebody's warbling in my ear. Who?
I think he
That's
just
okay. I
muted
just muted
himself.
it, so we're
Okay,
good.
thank you.
We should unmute ourselves.
Okay. Things like people, excuse me, people who value independence over status. So, oh shoot. So who are what are do things like this, right? So design choices, pricing philosophy, how you lean into the core values and what you refuse to do, right? So an example we like to talk about is Patagonia, right? They are very eco-conscious clothing brand, and they value replacement. They value repair over replacement. Um, they even have a they even had a marketing campaign that was essentially don't buy this garment, right? So I don't remember if it was don't buy this jacket or don't buy this outfit, but um, they tell you not to buy it because it is about they're trying to repair over replace. And so people who value that sort of thing will gravitate towards them, right? People like us do things like this. So just a quick thought experiment. Um, you don't have to say this out loud, but um, this is also a Seth Godin thing, I believe. Um, if Nike had opened a hotel, can you imagine what that would look like? Just picture it in your mind. And I just went on ChatGPT just for some fun, and ChatGPT came out with something like this. So, uh, is that something that you had in your mind? Um, And then also on the flip side, if you decide to do the same thing, if Hilton decided to come up with a running shoe, what would that look like? Right? Would it look something like this? Doesn't really say anything, does it? Um, so essentially what Hilton has is a logo. What Nike has is a brand. And so this is why when you step into a lot of the different hotels, if you're stepping into Hilton, if you're stepping into Sheraton, you remove the logo and you don't really know where you are because they've commoditized the entire thing. It's just price. It's just they all look the same. They all feel the same. They're right. So when we are talking about our brand, we want to make sure that um, we're going beyond that logo and focusing on the brand holistically. So the steps, pretty easy. Thesis. And that's the heart of everything, right? Where we start from. But that is, that's kind of just where we start. And then research. This is finding the gaps. This is the hard part because this is um, not only are you going to find things about your brand that maybe you didn't realize, but maybe you didn't think that this was what your brand was about at all. And execution. And this is getting to your findings and then putting together, that brand, visual brand identity, putting together the copy, and then of course refinement, right? So when we are setting up our thesis, um, sorry, Dave, how much time do we have?
You have 30 minutes.
total, or I still have 30 minutes?
You still have 30 minutes.
Okay. All right. So we always start off with what's your why, right? Why are you doing what you're doing? Um, and why is it that you want to be in this space, right? And then, you know, what's the belief behind there? What's the reason why you, your company, or your brand exists? And then we get into the problem. What problem do you help to solve, and whom do you solve it for? What do you see? What are you seeing in the world that could use your help? I mean, this is a gut feeling for now, right? And then you get into your core values. What are your core values? What's important to you? Um, and then what is your mission and your vision? This is going to be the guiding principle that will give your company personality, specific aspects your community can rally behind. And lastly, what you promise to do. This is different than your mission and your vision. Your mission and your vision is where you want to go. But your brand promise is, you know what? Every single time you deal with me, this is what you're going to get. This is what's going to happen. That being said, this is incomplete. This is where most companies stop. And when you have an incomplete brand strategy, you have, again, obviously, you don't really, this isn't really a strategy. That's what you had is, um, a hypothesis, right? I call it, I think I have a separate slide for this, but I call it, it's a hypothesis at best and guesswork at worst. So you have no strategy. You don't really know and then there are consequences to not having a strategy. There's no alignment. And so now what? So we get into that. The no strategy. This is a lot of what agencies do. Because they're one of the big reasons is they optimize for delivery. They're, another one, they optimize for launch. They're not longevity. They just want to give you what, they just give you one. They just want to show you that they've completed the task, right? Number two is they're not actually strategists. A lot of times they're designers. They're graphic designers, they're web designers. And so that's where they're focusing on. They're not actually strategists that are looking at the entire thing. Um, and again, with the sorry, because they're designers or they're what have you, they start with logos and colors, and they sometimes confuse aesthetics with differentiation. Resource scarcity. Again, C number one, right? Optimize for delivery. So again, this a lot of times when it comes to agencies, they skip or rush this research. Um, and the reason for that is because again, a big part of it is budget because research is the part that takes the most amount of work. You want to make sure that your hypothesis is sound. You want to have evidence-based. You want to have an evidence-based strategy. And so this is where a lot of your time, not the brain work, but the labor work is making sure that your hypothesis is sound. And so there's a budget issue. So a lot of companies, a lot of agencies specifically, don't focus on this area. Instead, trying to deliver something, just to deliver a package and call that a strategy. Instead, what you want to do at the end of the day is to create a decision-making system. It's not only how to look and how to speak, but when to speak and to whom are we speaking to, et cetera, et cetera. How do we deliver this message? The brand strategy is to make sure that we are able to deliver our brand message effectively in any given environment, and so that when having this brand architecture in place helps us to be able to say, okay, we want to be able to say this at this point. We want to sound like this, in X, Y, and Z times, and look like this when we're on the web, when we're in when we're in pamphlets, when we're doing presentations, et cetera, et cetera. Consequences. So by not going through the process, without a holistic brand strategy, you end up commoditizing. We talked about this a lot before. You end up trying to compete on cost because there's nothing differentiating you with other people, right? Um, you end up with inconsistent marketing. Um, and that so this dilutes trust. And inconsistent marketing, if one person says that, yeah, we can do this, we can do this, we can do that, and then the next person picks up the phone and says, oh yeah, we can't do that. I mean, I had this issue with Enercare a few years ago. I talked to three different people, and three different people had three different ideas of what their insurance was all about. So this dilutes trust. A lot of times what ends up happening then is without a brand strategy, you end up selling specs. My business has been around for X number of years. We've helped, 200 companies or 200 consumers, 2 million consumers, or what have you. Our pen has this ink bolt, this technology that helps write smoothly, but it's not really about what the pen does. It's how you feel, how you are, what the story is behind it that helps to sell it, and not just the specs. What ends up happening is that then your growth stalls, right? It doesn't go the way that you think it is. Everything kind of starts plateauing, and then also it affects the future because this messaging can't scale. The founder becomes a bottleneck, and this, why it affects the future is, this goes into, okay, this also goes into hiring, retention, and growth. With a clear brand strategy, you're also attracting the right people for your team. You're also keeping the right people for your team because people know what they're signing up for. Again, this ends up being, we're talking about inconsistencies, we're talking about misalignment. Um, so a lot of branding and a lot of brands fail because sales says one thing, marketing says another, customer service improvises and says another again, and then leadership has a gut feeling, but no shared language. So if you're able to share that language and be able to know that this is going to be what resonates with your clients and your customers, then again, you're going to be much more aligned. So now what? So a holistic strategy goes beyond a PDF. It is the blueprint for all your marketing communications needs. It is a complete strategy that will help you frame your messaging, attracting clients, and attracting new team members. And like I said before, a brand strategy without research is guesswork at worst and a hypothesis at best. So one of the things that we do is, how many, I can't see all of you, but how many of you know what a SWOT report is? Gallery. Okay. How many of you have done a SWOT report? Not that many. Okay. So for those of you who don't know, a SWOT report is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Strengths, what you do better than others. Weaknesses, what others do better than you. Opportunities, what you need to improve upon in the future. And threats, what external factors that are out of your control. So laws, regulations, supply chain disruption, market fluctuations. These are all threats. Now, this is, again, what we find incomplete and what we do that's a little bit different than other agencies. We start with the self SWOT, and then we go into a competitive SWOT. We take a look at your competitors, what they're doing, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, what their opportunities are, and what their threats are, because it might be different. And then finally, we do a comparative SWOT, because if one of your strengths is where somebody else is weak, isn't that an opportunity? So that's one thing that we do that's a little bit different as well. And this is something that I highly recommend for all of you to do. Take a look at your competition, do a SWOT report for them. Now you have comparison. You can see what you're doing well, where others are doing well, where you can be different, where, you know what? They're really focusing on one thing. So maybe I can focus on another because I'm also strong there. Or, you know what? My competitors are all really strong in this one area and I'm really weak in that area. Maybe I need to brush up in that area, right? So it tells you a lot. So why is swatting important for market differentiation? Okay. And case in point, right? Sorry, and we're gonna get into the audience, and this is what you know a little game, a psychology game that some of my friends used to play in high school. Um, Again, you can do this in your head, but name an animal. Okay, you've thought of an animal, name that animal. Now, a second animal, name an animal. Okay, and then it goes on. You know what you think about when you think of water. What describe the water. You know, if you're in a white room, blah blah blah, and stuff like that. But the important one that I want to get into is that first and second animal. That first and second animal was first animal is how you see yourself, and that second animal is how others see you. So chances are the two animals that you guys chose were entirely different, right? So if that's the case, why is that thesis complete, right? If other people see you differently than how you see yourself, um, so this is why that research is important. Okay, so so let's get into the audience research. So we want to take a look at demographics, right? And we want to prove our hunches. We want to hone in and focus on the specific people and their behaviors. Demographics, statistical age group, gender, income, education. Thank you, Michelle. Still very different animals, but thank you. Um, Income, education, those are demographics. Psychographics, geographics. Where's their location? Are they rural? Are they suburban? Are they urbans? Are they in specific neighborhoods? Psychographics, attitudes, aspirations, and other psychological criteria, right? And then I go into something called scatographics. This is something I made up. Scat, pardon my French, shit, right? Other shit, right? So other things that are not in those three categories that you might want to find to find out what kind of chocolate are they into, what kind of movies are they into, what those things might be important, might not be, but just to find out anything that demographics, graphics, geographics, and psychographics that might have missed. Okay, once you do that, you also want to do the customer decision making journey, and this one's really important. So for B2B, this is maybe a typical decision-making journey. So, you start off with exploration, then you go into solution exploration, then you kind of discovery, and then understanding the solution, and then you go into the negotiation and then make a decision and then ongoing project management. Where are you reaching your customer at that and in that moment, right? For example, I'm picking on Joe because I know Joe. Doing insurance. Some people might have, they might already have some kind of initial idea of what insurance is. And so when they call you, they're not entirely cold. So that first group, might not be that important to you. You might want to focus on the people who are starting that internal that discussion and starting to think about, oh, understanding that solution, you might want to think of start focusing on those. Whereas, you know, um, somebody else, that potential customer might be at the very, very beginning. They might have just talked about it with their loved ones and be like, yeah, I have this thing, but I have no idea what it is, right? So, say for example, right, right now our front steps need to be redone. I have no idea where to start with that, right? So I'm looking at different people for, do I talk to a landscaper? Do I talk to a masonry person? Who do I talk to? I'm kind of starting to research that, right? And so I'm looking at the industry. I'm looking at online search. I'm talking to ChatGPT, et cetera, et cetera. Those are initial. And talking to, where are we first talking to our customers, and how are we leading them through this decision-making process? Again, this is all B2B for now, right? So the example that I've come up with is B2B. So you've got different motivations when you're as a client. You've got different title. You've got different. You might be talking to different people, being able to understand who is your blocker, who is the influencer, who is the decision maker in this. What are their motivations? What is their behavior? What their um, they go through this process, right? Um, so, again, where are you in this map? Um, and then how you're going to detail this is going to be different, right? Then you also start wanting to be, after you've done all this, you want to kind of take a look at what your unique value proposition is. What is the intrinsic value that your customers and your audience gain only from you? What is your promise, right? So, any of you remember Encyclopedia Britannica? It was where you went to for all your information back in the day, right? Then along came Google, and their mission was to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. They literally took what encyclopedia and libraries were doing for centuries and improved on it. They saw all the shortcomings of these institutions, and they have 10 values that center around information. Here are some of them. Focus on the user, all else will follow. Fast is better than slow. There's always more information out there. The need for information crosses all borders, and you can't be serious without a suit. So this is their unique value proposition. Encyclopedia had its unique value proposition, and now Google came and changed and um, stepped up and changed everything with their unique value proposition. So what's your unique value proposition? So now we get into the story. Obviously, your story. What led you to this? What makes you the right person? For me, it's been that my parents, my grandparents, my parents, my aunts and uncles, they all had their respective small businesses. I was part of my parents' small business for about 10 years, and Coyote is in itself still a small business. So I have a unique understanding of the position of small business owners in different levels of where they're at, but still that perspective of the small businesses, their challenges, their struggles, right? So that's my story, right? Part of my story. And then, of course, yes, we are looking at visual identity, your colors, fonts, logos, et cetera, et cetera. That's part of the execution. Again, that's part of the output. Then we want to take a look at positioning of products and your services. What's the problem you're solving? What's the solution? What's the audience? And what's the intention, right? The services that you guys provide, I as Coyote, my services could be, I could service just the the solopreneur that's working, on their own. That's a small business. But a small business could also be, $50 million company. That's also a small business. some $50 million companies are still, 10 people or less. So that's still a small business. So where do I want to focus and how do I cater my services and products to the different people? Or do I? Or am I focused on one group over the other? And of course, I do want to talk about website. Your website is the most valuable digital asset that you own. And recently, DC found out this the hard way. DC, this giant company that's with HBO, Warner Brothers, had one of their videos taken down by YouTube. It was a promo for their Lanterns TV show that's coming up, and it got taken down by YouTube. You do not own YouTube. You do not own the stuff that's on YouTube. YouTube does. Yes, they say you own it, but they can take it down willy-nilly as they see fit. Okay? They don't own your website. You own your website. So that is one of the reasons, and that's why you want your website to be the hub of everything that you do. Social media, you do not own that. You can be what is it? Closet banned or something like that as well, right? They can change the algorithm. You can be lost in you get lost in it, right? Right. So your story. We're back to your why. We're going, and then we're also looking at your journey. What's your methodology? How do you help your customers? How do you help you? How do you go about doing it? What's the process look like? What kind of experience do you have? Right? Maybe it's an industry, maybe it's overall, but what experience do you have? What makes you the authority? And also, what passions do you have? What are you interested in? What are your hobbies? What makes you human? What makes people like you? Okay? After you've done all this, again, this is one thing that we do different than most of our competitors, is we tell our clients to write a love letter to your ideal client. Why are you meant to be together? What makes it that the two of you are a match made in heaven? From that research that you did, we found out what their demographics is, what their scattergraphics is, what their geographics is, what their psychographics are. All right, you understand your client now. What makes you guys a match? You've talked about your passions, you've talked about your experience. So what makes you guys an ideal match? Then finally, we start going into visual identity. Yes, visual identity is great. It represents you when you're not around. There's something called color theory, and that it is a real thing. You know, red is the color of passion, yellow is the color of joy, right? Et cetera, et cetera. Green and blue, earth and peace, right? And we're going to talk about fonts. And I'll get into fonts in a little bit. Fonts do make a difference. And of course, you want to do imagery and photos. And as much as you can, especially in this day and age, there's so many stock photos around, and they're all very stock photo-y, right? All those stock photos, high-fiving each other, handshakes, et cetera, right? So what are your photos? And of course, then you also want to take a look at UI UX. What is the user interface and the user experience, especially on your website? All right, fine. Here's a fun one. Some of you might have seen this before. Let's be together forever. This looks rather innocuous, right? Rather nothing. But once you kind of say it like this, let's be together forever. It looks so much more lovey-dovey, doesn't it? But what happens if you say it this way? It's rather ominous, isn't it? I know I'm being like this is a little extreme, but this is why font matters, right? Copywriting. All right, what is copywriting? Copywriting is all the written aspects of your marketing. Websites, emails, ads, socials, posters. All use copywriting as a captivating aspect to their offering. Why is it important? It articulates your values, it connects directly to your audience, right? Um, all that information that you gathered about your customer, the psychographics, the social graphics, the geographics, all need to be leveraged to bring life to a captivating story. And how do I fine tune my copy to my customer base, right? Again, that research and that SWOT analysis. Now, I didn't write this one in, but one thing that I thought of the other day was this is real. It's true, right? We want to find a compelling customer journey storytelling, right? But not all stories are for all people. Not all stories begin with once upon a time. So not all stories is for the right audience. You want to be telling the right story for the right audience, right? So when you are doing your customer journey storytelling, you want to know, what is the problem your customer is facing and how are you helping to resolve it? How did your client get to your site and encounter your product or service? Do your communications use language that resonates with your core demographic? I did a brand review for a company, and before I did the brand review, the owner operator kept on telling me that his company was in services for blue collar workers, HVAC, builders, et cetera, et cetera. You look onto his website, you take a look at his marketing material, you take a look at his brand, the brand strategy. Nothing talks about them at all. Nothing about plumbing, nothing about pipes, nothing talks about that at all. So they're not using communications that resonates with that core demographic. Are you speaking to causes that matter to your demographic? Social justice, sustainability, equity, equality. Again, going back to Patagonia, right? For your website, again, the storytelling continues. Look at one way to take a look at your website and how to frame it is to look at it as chapters in a book. Which chapters are talking about which, right? Why? I I always at least go three whys in. So why are you doing what you're doing? Okay, why is that? And why is that important? Um, you want to dig in as deep as you can. Why is this product or service right for your customer? Why is that? And then go deeper again. Why is that? Why is that important? Go at least three whys in. That's something that we recommend. And of course, with websites, looking at spacing, balance, flow. Again, this is all about that customer storytelling. From the art of war, tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. Again, visual identity is an output. It's a tactic. It's not a strategy. So make sure that you have your strategy in place. Branding needs to happen at every point of contact. It's about knowing our why. It's about understanding our customers. It's about becoming a part of their community and building ours. And being able to maneuver in accordance with what's happening in the community we build for continued success and how we formulate a strategy for it. All right. That's it for me. Any questions? I know I blathered on quite a bit, so I do apologize.
That's all right. You did well. We're understanding. All right. So, Thomas, are you able to hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So you are. So you're ready for questioning, I take it.
Sure.
All right. Guys, the floor is open for question. Say if you want Thomas to walk you through a particular situation, let him do that. But question on a whole, this is a question period. Diane, I'll start with you. So go
Yeah,
ahead.
thanks, Thomas. That was really great. a lot, well, not a lot of it, but there were some portions that I was aware of. But you're right, you have to kind of take that information and apply it to you. My question was about what you said about your competitors' SWOT.
Mhm.
How do you know that? So, sorry, this is a kind of a two-part question. So, the
Mhm.
competitor SWOT was something that I wanted you to elaborate on any like a little bit more. And also for myself, I have no repeat clients. I work with somebody once, I solve their problem in one session, and then they're great. So I get referrals too, but mostly I work with elite business professionals. So a lot of them don't, there's still stigma around mental health, and they don't always want to admit that they were seeing a therapist. They don't want to refer me because then their colleagues, their family, their friends would know their secret kind of thing, right?
Right.
So there's also my dilemma of it sounds too good to be true.
Mhm.
So when I say what I do, people are like, yeah, right. So competitors, what, and what advice would you have for me as a person who has no repeat clients?
I'll get into competitor SWOT first because that one's easier.
Sure.
uh, competitor SWOT, other people's websites, other people's LinkedIn, other people's, if they have Google reviews, if you've spoken to some people that have used other people's services,
Mhm.
maybe your industry might be a little bit different. But again, I'm picking on Joe again here. But some of us have talked to other insurance brokers, and you know, quite on. Like I recently changed mine because the previous insurance broker that I had, I'd been dealing with her for 25 years. I never even met her, right?
Oh
Never picked up the
dear.
phone to call me. I inherited my insurance broker, but then a friend of mine became an insurance broker, so I went with him. So a little bit different, but
So the
but
strength, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, if you don't know your competitor, if you look at their LinkedIn, their website, you're looking for their brand SWOT, right?
yeah,
Not their
what are they
services,
about? Yeah,
obviously.
what are they about? What are they strong at? What are so say for
Yeah.
example, you know. Again, with my competitors, a lot of them are focusing on they call it a brand strategy, but they're focusing on that the visual representation, and so that's an
Oh, and not
opportunity for me,
copy and things like that. Yeah.
right? So where you look at it holistically, they don't, right? So that sort of a thing,
Okay. I get
right?
it. Yeah.
So that's an opportunity for us,
I'm
right?
super strong and solid in my copy. I actually just was in a lawsuit with a web developer that was not promising or were not delivering what they promised.
Mhm.
So that's a huge issue for me is even if their website reflects that they can deliver and they talk the talk and they walk the walk, and I gave them over 4 grand and they were failing miserably.
Mm.
So it's like how I just fell right into it. I did the research.
Mhm.
Looked at their past clients, everything, all the ducks lined up in a row because I'm very thorough that way. And I got bit in the ass, so to speak. Sorry, pardon my
Yeah,
language, but
no,
anyways.
no problem.
So
I'm sorry
yeah,
that happened to
so
you.
we're looking at that stuff, doing your research, but also with people in my industry, my brand, because it's such a holistic practice, my brand is more practical, logical, because I work with business professionals. They don't want fluffy. They don't want to see me walking along the beach with namaste hands promising live your dreams, right? They want, I have a drinking problem, I have a leadership problem, I have confidence, a low confidence problem in making decisions, and I need that fixed. And I do that for them quite
Mhm.
quickly, like within a matter of weeks. So
Right.
yeah, I mean, I appreciate what you're saying, but again, my mind is just turning as to how that can apply for me, but that's very helpful.
Appreciate that.
Take your time with the information. Take a little today, and maybe from the recording you can take a little bit more later on.
Sorry, Diane, what you had the second part to your question. I forgot what that was now.
Oh, just more like how I attract clients because that's been, everybody that works as a coach, as a holistic coach, as a therapist, that's always the number one question is how do you attract clients? I find in-person networking is much more valuable than online, but I started my business in COVID, so I didn't have the opportunity for the first couple of years. But I remember being at my first in-person event, just feeling elated. Like, this is what it's like to be with like-minded professionals. These people are all business owners, and I finally feel like I felt like I fell into my niche.
Right.
So I was with the right tribe.
Right. And that's exactly what we're talking about, the
Yeah.
right tribe, right?
Yeah.
And for most solopreneurs, what my recommendation is to get involved, right?
Yeah.
Do you have any hobbies? Are you part of a running club, a knitting club, a soccer team, a bowling team, or what have you?
Yeah.
I was just talking to somebody else, and he's very much into soccer. Your soccer team is, 11 people on the pitch, right? And then you've
Yeah.
got some subs, people who sub in, right? That's 11 different families that you can talk to. And
Yeah.
then you've got 11 people on the other side of, right? So that's another 11 families and 15 families that you can talk to. That's 30 families already. And if you're part of a league, there's probably a few more
Yeah,
teams,
I
right?
can't say I'm sporty
So,
spice over here, but
right.
I did try to
But
figure out where my clients hang out,
yeah,
right? And
so
so, I'm at like a high-end gym. I just joined a couple of
yeah.
months ago. The first women over 40 walking group that I joined. They had a potluck I went to. I got I didn't even go for clients. I just went to
Hmm?
increase my circle of friends. I
Exactly.
got three clients out of it. Boom, like in the first week, right? So
Exactly.
the in-person stuff really, really works because they see your
Yeah.
energy, they see what you're about.
Yeah.
We buy what we
Exactly.
know that who like from people we know, like, and trust, right? So I get that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
thanks.
Yeah.
All
Any
right.
other questions?
Yeah, so let's go around the room and get some other questions or comments.
I got a question.
If you want to say something specifically, Joe, uh, go ahead.
Yeah, I got a question. So you said something about you're talking about the value of the website versus social media, right? So what I like, I get clients actually through social media. They'll message me through LinkedIn, um, through Instagram. I get Instagram, Facebook. I get these clients through here. So basically, you're saying that you don't own that, like that can be ripped from you. How do you like? How do you actually take ownership of that? Because like once they're your clients, then they become like that becomes like your property really because you want them to be your clients. How do you actually create like a client list out of that so that it won't be ripped away from you? Any suggestions on that?
Yeah, email, yeah, capture, right? Get their information, right? Getting just their DMs. Again, that can be that if your account for whatever reason get somebody that's complaining that you're being abusive, spamming, or whatever, they you can get locked out. So um, you can if you're able to get to a place where you're that potential class customer or and obviously if they're already your client then you already have their information, but if you can get them to a place where you can capture their information, get them to give you their name, their email, their phone, then you have it. And I say that the number one, the most valuable digital asset that you own is your website.
Mhm.
The second most valuable digital asset that you own is your email list.
Your email list. So then you when you're saying the email list, I should protect this through things like using a platform like Cyber Impact, where it 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 modifies itself for to protect yourself against anti-spamming laws. Is that what you're
Mm.
meaning?
Well, I mean, having the email list means that you can start reaching out to them, right?
Yeah.
If they've given you the permission to reach out to them, that means, now you're speaking to them directly, right? And it doesn't matter if you're putting together a campaign or if you're putting it together or if you're a newsletter or what have you, as long as they've signed up for it, then you can start and you can start messaging them, right? So, yes, I don't know if all of us
Thomas,
are yes.
essentially you're talking about a contact management system, right?
Yes, if depending on how large your contact management how large your email list is. If you're only talking to, 3 to 5 people at a time, you don't need a whole CRM system, right? If
Right.
you're
But how
talking to,
large should Joe's be?
sorry,
How long should it is be?
well, Joe's can be as long as he wants it to be.
Yeah.
But it depends. Like it
It
also takes
depends on how much money you want to make, right? But say a single
It depends
insurance
on your
agent.
it depends on your capacity, how many people you think that you can well service, right?
Mm.
Right.
Yeah. I guess my problem is I've garnered these clients from like all these different places, and I've never really taken the time to put them together. So I think even I've started actually consolidating my emailing list, and that's why I'm starting to investigate using things like Cyber Impact. But I think in the end, I'm going to have to create some sort of CRM that's going to manage like all these different places I've gotten these clients from. So. Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. Any follow up to that, Joe, or we move on to somebody else?
No, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Thomas.
No problem.
All
There's
right.
so many things to this, Thomas. When you're talking about it, I mean, things like the font. I mean, the examples you show were really significant, right? It really makes a difference, and it's very easy to just forget that stuff. And then the stock photos. I mean, some of the stock photos are so stock photo-ish. As soon as you go to a site and look at them, they're just you're put off.
Yeah.
So I don't know in your experience. Are people using AI now to specifically generate images for their websites? Because you can describe exactly what you want as against scrolling through endless pictures trying to find something.
Yeah. And there is a lot of AI out there, a lot of AI copy as well. Again, I was doing another brand review for another client and or yeah, another company, and their entire marketing system is AI generated, and it's just all AI slop, right? And it's like I took one look at it and I'm like, this is all AI. Like I can't. Like, they're writing for SEO, not writing for people. It was really really bad. I mean, but AI is out there. It's a very useful tool. We use AI every day. But it is to help. AI is a tool. It is not the final output. Right. So in terms of AI for visuals, you are still going to run into issues. I wrote a while ago. Again, this wasn't for Sora. This was a while ago. This was not Midjourney, platforms that are specifically for art. But I asked ChatGPT, I asked Gemini, and I asked Copilot to show me a watch face showing a mechanical watch showing 7:35 a.m. and it could not do it. They all brought out 10 and 2 because
Mm.
that's what majority of the images online show, 10 and 2. So I said, no, the time's wrong. It needs to be 7:35 and still came back 10 and 2. It can't do it. Or at least it couldn't do it. Again, this was a few months ago. So things might have changed again, but it goes to show the limitations of AI, right? So when you are doing those images, you have to be very careful because, again, when people start sensing that things are AI, then it takes away from the authenticity. And because there's so much AI right now, that the human element is actually so much more important now. Right
Tom,
now, there are. Go ahead.
sorry, I didn't want to cut you off. I'm just reading that very point recently. One of the tech newsletters saying you can generate a website now, content, images, everything just through AI. But the interesting thing is, even though it may look great, as individuals, we may think, oh, that looks nice. But still, the people that reference that site, in other words, search engines and AI itself, don't look at it of the same quality and often will, give points against you because they know it's, like you said, AI slop. It may be well done, but they know it's all produced by AI. So AI is they're smart enough to know if it's written by human beings, and the human being part of it will get boosted against the AI stuff. So it's
Yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah. Right. Diane, you were talking about know, like, and trust. Yes, and it is at the end of the day all about that. So it is about you, right? For small businesses, it's still all about you. So AI isn't you. So AI doesn't have your experience. AI doesn't have your personality. AI doesn't have, right? So sharing your wisdom, sharing your knowledge, sharing your experiences, sharing your passions, those are all things that share you. Your photos, these are all things that share you. AI can't replace that. AI can't replace you,
Right.
right? So,
Thomas, if I may say something about that,
sure.
AI deal with one side of the brain, but the side that love and do all the things that only you can do. It can do all the digital stuff for you, but it can't do the stuff that actually touches people's heart. And in order for you to set up AI agent properly, you actually need to go through some of the procedures that he spoke about to know your brand in such detail, where you can give that information to the AI so that everything it does conform to the the information that you gave it, right? So that's what the bigger companies are doing now. They're creating all these AI agents and they're loading all the information in there, like Thomas spoke about, all that detail, so the AI know exactly what to generate for them.
Yeah. And I go, the thing that we have to be careful about is, again, if we are using AI, again, excuse me, my experience with Enercare, right? I was asking about warranties. The tech guy said one thing, the sales guy said another, head office said a third thing. When we're talking to, if AI is generating something for us, yeah, we might have looked at it 3 years ago when we generated it. Is that still what we wanted to say? We might not have paid that much attention to what it was saying. So all of a sudden, it's if what we're offering is it going to be different than what we're actually offering, right? So just relying on ourselves to be able to write, or relying on having gone through a team that's making sure that that's exactly what you want to say, is it's just not that you shouldn't be doing it, but just be very careful because things do change over time, and so making sure that what you want to say later on still reflects that. Go ahead, can I please unmute yourself?
Yeah, I have a question for you. So thanks for this insightful presentation and stuff. My question is for myself. I'm a startup. I'm just starting up my business. I've been an IT professional, but now I want to get into entrepreneurship and provide my service of active meditation teaching. That will help the mind, body, and soul, and voice that you for a leadership or something. So I'm here trying to figure out how to set up my website and how to make this going forward a brand. To me, brand is something that you build over time. I start with the initial marketing, and then as the marketing goes further, then I know, though I know at the starting who I am, what is that I want to offer. A brand by itself is made by your repeated sales, you could say, but then it comes over time. How do what would be your advice for a startup like me, or a person who is an individual, like Diane said, she's herself one person. There is no repeat clients, or there is something like that. What would be the way that we start doing the marketing for a startup or a?
Okay.
Thank you.
I look at a brand strategy like a blueprint for building a house. You don't start just by starting to build. You don't put up pictures before you have a frame, right? You start with the strategy, which is the blueprint. Then you do the foundations, right? The foundations being your logos, your websites, your sales, your brochures and stuff like that. Then you start doing the framing, right? The framing is your scaffolding. This is your building your authority. This is building your presence. This is getting involved with your community. All of those things. Now, will there be changes along the way? Absolutely, but then those are adjustments. If you're just going and you're just trying to market and you're trying to sell and you market and sell without a strategy, then you don't know where you're going. You don't know what you're building. So our recommendation is you always start off with that strategy, right? There's a common saying that says you're throwing things against the wall and seeing what sticks, and that's not a strategy, right? So if you start with the strategy, then you know where you're going. Again, going with that holistic strategy, understanding who your clients are, understanding who your customers are, understanding who your audience is, and being able to speak to them directly. Then you start honing and refining from there. But you have to have a direction at first, and that's what that brand strategy is.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. All right. So what we're gonna do is stop the recording so that if you have any questions that you didn't want to be recorded,